Hey everyone, how's it going? We are getting ever so close now to Great Lakes testing round one at Wisconsin International Raceway. You wouldn't believe it because I'm wearing a hoodie inside in April. It was snowing today. What is going on? But we do have some good news. And that good news is that Colin Reffner will be making his return to the Tundra Super Late Model Series starting on May 14th after a one and done last year, which honestly very disappointing for me because I love having Colin with us. He's one of the very fun teams to be joining us over the last few seasons. Colin, first off, great to have you back. And secondly, last season, obviously not the season you had wanted. What was it like for you having to sit out on the sidelines the whole year?
Yeah, it was definitely different. That was probably the most quiet summer, well, racing wise, that I've had since I've been probably 6 years old. So that was definitely something new to me. But fortunately, I had our little baby boy was due in July, so that kept us quite busy. And obviously, we started the rebuild of the car, shortly thereafter. So there was definitely wasn't a lack of anything to do. I had plenty to do.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? It's funny how things time out in life, right? I mean, I know you just had a daughter not too long ago, so she's still young, and then the baby brother comes along. Really not such a bad thing to sort of put the pause on the racing to get the family going, was it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, really, it was the right time to make a good out of a bad situation. So yeah, it really afforded me to have the opportunity to take time putting the car back together right, and make some changes that I've probably always wanted to. And yeah, I got to spend a lot of time with my family that yeah, otherwise wouldn't have had, and wasn't planning on having. So yeah, it took the time to do a lot of things that I normally wouldn't have done during the summer months. So yeah, in that sense, the timing was right, and I had plenty to do, and plenty of good happy things to keep my mind focused on, and enjoying life. So yeah, it wasn't too bad.
So let's chat about the car itself. I mean, obviously, it you wouldn't think that it was such a hard, heavy hit by just hitting another car without, hitting a wall or making contact or ripping it off of the guardrail. But the car itself, the way these cars are built now, they sustain a lot of damage. So what all had to be fixed, and how did you go about getting things ready throughout the summer months for a return here in 2022?
Yeah. So yeah, really one of the once we kind of left the track that day, I was a little unsure of the extent. Obviously it's kind of hard to tell when you don't have the car fully on the jig. And our car was built fully in our shop from the ground up, chassis wise. So yeah, I really started, got it back to the shop, started cutting away bars, and got it on the jig. Kind of found out that fortunately the center section wasn't wrecked at all, and really everything kind of just stayed really contained to the front stub area. And had some concerns about the motor being wrecked, so of course that got that taken down to Wagner, and they got that taken apart right away for me. And everything was all good there, actually. And but yeah, I mean, there, yeah, a lot of other expensive pieces that are huddled around the engine up front that were pretty much ended their life. So yeah, there was a lot of new components that needed to kind of be bought. Pretty much everything else that really surrounds the engine up front.
And one of those things, obviously, is the body. And we can all tell by your hat, you made a little switch there. So it's going to be a different look to the race car this year, isn't it? People might be used to the blue Monte Carlo, but obviously with 5-star in the new bodies, you're going to have a fresh look for the 87 this year, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been probably since 2012 since I've had a 5-star body on it. I've had a lot of support over the years from both AR bodies and 5-star. And yeah, I was definitely in a big time of need in my life to get a helping hand to get back to the racetrack. And yeah, ended up kind of getting conversations with 5-star, and they were there to help me out soon thereafter the wreck. So yeah, can't thank them enough. And yeah, excited to we'll have a next gen body on it. So I'm excited to see how that feels on the car. And definitely a big change look wise. And aero wise. So we'll see how that is. I'm excited for that. Definitely cool to sport that new look, and I'm pretty excited for it. So yeah, like I said, once again, I gotta really thank the guys at 5 Star and Corey and Chris for giving me a hand there. So yeah, really excited about it.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to seeing how that looks, because these cars obviously are looking, awesome with those new 5 Star bodies. So
Yeah, for sure.
let's go back and talk. I mean, there's so much to discuss with you about family history and your racing career as well, because we can talk about your grandpa and your uncle and your dad and all of those things that go with it, and we will touch on that throughout the day here. But I want to talk about your racing career, because I remember you started off, you were very, very young, and there was some hype around you, obviously, with the last name. And I don't try to use that in any sort of a term like hype as a bad thing. There was a lot of, excitement around Colin Reffner, the youngster with all this pedigree racing. As a young guy, does that put pressure on you as a young race car driver jumping into the sport, or did it help you? Did you feel like you had that help behind you, or how did that play out for you when you first started racing?
Yeah, I mean, there was, you look at, how racing was, when my grandpa raced, and how racing was when my uncle and dad raced, and obviously things evolve and change over time, and there are certain things that all of those guys have done that I just assume that I may never achieve or may never do, and um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my career, I really just tried to establish myself, as my own person, as my own name, and I think that's kind of the way you got to look at it, and the right way to do it. And of course, there's certain things I wish I would, that I would like to do and wish I would have done, already, that maybe some things that they've done, and I mean, yeah, maybe maybe to a degree, it's not so much pressure, but it's lacrosse is, for instance, lacrosse is one of my favorite tracks, if not my favorite. And, my grandpa's won the Oktoberfest, and then my uncle's won the Oktoberfest. And, and I'd like to add my name to that books. And, I haven't ran that race in, quite some years now. And, for a handful of reasons or another, but, so that, there's things like that I wish I, would, I'd love to add my name to those type of books. But, yeah, so, there's certain little pressures here. And I guess I wouldn't even really call it pressure. I just, things I'd like to do that they've done. But yeah, it all really depends on how you look at it.
Your movement up, obviously, you started in the super stock and made the move up to the late model, super late model kind of car pretty early in your career. Was that really the path that you guys had projected for your career, or did you got in the super stock, you felt so comfortable because you were very successful, early on right away? Did you just feel like that was the right time to make the move up, or was it something that you had kind of planned out, get in the super stock for a couple of years and then just make the jump right away?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yeah, a lot of my jumps or past or changes that I've made in divisions of my career have kind of all happened at times when I really wasn't expecting to. I think, I mean, yeah, my career really started off in 4 cylinders racing on the dirt, and then we did almost a full year of asphalt, and we were kind of looking to do something different. And um, it was actually Adam Kokowski. He At the time, he knew of one of his old 4 cylinders being for sale, so we kind of put my go-kart racing on pause, jumped into that, kind of just at a whim, and started practicing that. Got the go-ahead that I could race at a fairly young age. I think I was 12 at that time, and then from there, there was we really hadn't talked about or thought about what the next jump would be. Of course, the ultimate goal at some point was super late models, and then it just happened to be. I think, and I really think I jumped in a super stock in 2014, I think it was, and it may have been 2013, one of those 2 years. But and there happened to be a really fast car for sale at that time, so we're like, hey, that sounds like a great idea, and kind of jumped into that, learned about that, and made strides there. And yeah, really when my super late model career kicked off, it was really at Oktoberfest. It started with Kevin Lang, who ended up being my car owner for my first ever super late model. And Gary Kovleski was kind of helping him, who was my car owner then thereafter, Kevin. And so then, yeah, we kind of started talk shortly after Oktoberfest that year. Yeah, it must have been 2015. And so then going into 2016, we started my super late model career with Kevin Lang in Advanced Racing Motorsports. And then I ran for him for 1 year. That was a big learning experience, big learning curve, and had a lot of fun. Got to build a whole car kind of over in Minnesota. So I was 15 going on 16, I think, from the first week of January that year all the way to the first week of May. My dad and myself and my grandpa would travel to over to Hamel, Minnesota, and spend Friday, Saturday, come back late Sunday from building the super late model. So, at the time, I was, 16 years old, felt like I was living the dream at that time and loving every minute of it. So I went through that year. And then, Kevin kind of decided to put a pause on racing. And then Gary Kovleski, who was the crew chief for that car, he had always wanted to own a super late model. And a lot of good things fell into place. And, we teamed up with Ed Holmes and got a Holmes left-hander, and had a really great 2 years in 2011 and 12. So yeah, thinking about that, 2011 and 12 is when I ran for them. So I got a lot of my years mixed up when I said about the 4-cylinder and super stock. So yeah, we ran for Gary with Gem Motorsports in 2011 and 12. 2011 got my first super late model win at La Crosse, and that's kind of where it all started. And then after 2012, that deal with Gary was ending, and then my uncle had started building a chassis at our family's race shop, and that ended up evolving into the one that I have now, some updates later. And that's kind of how it all came to be. And I've been kind of racing with my family, and kind of developed into my team over the last handful of years.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how that dynamic, because I remember, in the 44 Gem car when you had those days, and back when you actually made your debut with us in 2013 before you became a full-timer in 2017, with your own equipment. But just to go along with your family, the dynamic in your pit area is so incredible. I think when people walk by, they can't believe what they see, because your dad was a pretty accomplished racer. Maybe he didn't get the accolades that your uncle got, but he did very, very well for himself. Obviously, your uncle with all of his time in ASA and some of the other things that he did, and then your grandpa as well, just being one of the pioneers of short track racing, really, here in the state of Wisconsin. So if you guys are all arguing about a particular setup or something, who wins? Which way do you guys go? How does that work out?
Yeah, there's usually whatever the majority ends up thinking. So, I mean, obviously over time, I'm the one that's in the car, and has the feeling for what's going on, and has the feeling for what adjustments do what. So, usually whoever I'm collaborating with the most on, and based off kind of what they're seeing, what they think too. So it definitely goes back and forth. So it definitely goes back and forth.
So I think, without confirming here, you did kind of confirm my thought, is that there are arguments, aren't there?
I mean, I wouldn't say arguments too much, but when it comes to setup type of stuff, but I don't know. I mean, and there's probably more times than not that we all kind of come to agreements. And I mean, I got a pretty good feel of how adjustments really have worked on our car, and how things are. And we usually all come to pretty good terms. Maybe we go a little bit farther with an adjustment based on what someone else is thinking, but we're usually all pretty close to being on the same path and same mindset on kind of what direction we got to go.
That's good. Keep the peace in the family. That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed about you is, and we've talked about this with a couple of the other drivers on these Tundra talks, that I find it very interesting when someone comes to Kakana for the first time and has success. And to me, with our Tundra races at Kakana, you were the first one of those people coming out with a top five early on, one of the first times you were there. Not a lot of people see that. Then obviously the Kakana fans jump in because they recognize the last name. What was it like for you, and how, and this isn't just a Kakana specific question, how do you go and attack a track that you just don't know and find yourself so successful early on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always gotten excited when I go to, go to bigger tracks, and I've always felt the bigger and bigger track that I go to, and just bigger tracks in general, I feel like, fit with my driving style the most. And I mean, I really grew up, running at Golden Sands the most in my life, with four cylinders and super stocks, and then, kind of really just did there in Marshfield. But yeah, I've really always felt like, personally, I've always really taken to some of the bigger tracks. And I think when I'm going to a newer track like that, that's where it does help to have, some of the family members that I do have. And, my uncle, not being too far removed from when he ran super late models. So, there's a lot of advice that's there to be given, and, a lot of things to learn, whether it's, something little or something big. Um, so, it really helps when you go to a new track. I know, like, this year we're looking to go to the Milwaukee Mile, and, be able to have my uncle and in my pit crew, that, that definitely helps being able to have some of that advice and experience. I mean, yeah, you really can't beat experience. So, but yeah, I mean, really, I have a blast at Kakon. It's a fun, unique racetrack, and, turns one and two are so different from three and four. And yeah, it's fast and it's exciting. It's rough. It's got a lot of character, and yeah, I mean, it's a blast to run on. And yeah, I think, at the time, I think, when I first stepped into Tundra and, went to Kakana, it was something new. And that's really the only times that I've been there is with Tundra. So I really only been there one time a year, and so it's still really new to me, really. And yeah, it's a blast every time we show up.
And obviously, with a good race at Kakana, that's a great way to start the year, right? And I think back to what you did in 2018, where you picked up the win. I believe this is the first time we did the Bev Memorial at Marshfield.
Yeah.
Set fast time, and obviously that's a big race for you, right? Just with what Bev was to the series, not just to the series, but to racing in that area and in the state. As a fan, could there have been a more special first Tundra win for you than what you had experienced there?
Yeah, I mean, that was really, really cool. I think, yeah, I think, with, a lot of things considered, that, that was a really, pretty special first race. It's a track that's real close to home. And I had a lot of family members there. There were a lot of family members from Amy's side of the family who were from Arizona that happened to be up with their kids and everything, and got to run down the track and got to have their picture taken with me. And yeah, I mean, it's a real close to home track that, pretty much all the sponsors are able to make and kind of come out to. And yeah, it really worked out well to have that as a first race. And then, yeah, going back to, being the Bev Ashenbrenner Memorial. I mean, yeah, I think I started racing at, must have been 2008 is when I really started racing at Marshfield. And, of course, I'd known Brandon and the Ashenbrenner family from, when I started running at Golden Sands, which would have been 2006. So when I got into four cylinders. So, yeah, I mean, really, I'd known that family for so long. And yeah, it was always at Marshfield where Bev was bringing treats over after the races. And yeah, I don't think I ever turned down one of those. And yeah, it was a really good first win, special for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it was a tough loss. Obviously, we all love Bev and everything that she was to racing. So, we're going back there again, and I remember, I think it was the next year at Marshfield. You ended up setting fast time, and you had a miss in the engine. Just what does that do for you? Because that's you're off to such a strong start in a day. And then to have something like that happen, because I think to me, it looked like you were on pace to do what you had just done the year before, which was fast time and a win. Um, how do you bounce back from something like that? And just what does that do for your team on that day?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a good first year with the Tundra series, and then of course, yeah, coming off the win from the year prior, had a lot of high expectations for ourselves, and I think we had raced at Marshfield, I think of the week before or something like that, and had that miss in the car and tore a lot of things apart in the car and really dug into a lot of things. We're praying to God that it was going away, and it started developing during practice again, kind of intermittently, and ended up it was rumbling and bumbling and stumbling and qualifying, and still ended up setting fast time. And I mean we had a really good car that day, and it was bad enough. I can't remember. I think we must have made a lap in the feature and then pulled her in, which is a sad deal. But knowing that our car was as quick as it was, it's, I guess, something to hang your hat on that day. And you just kind of, we were fortunate. We actually ended up finding that problem the following morning in the shop after kind of really beating ourselves up over it and finding out what it was. But I think there's, being able to set fast time at that point is, something to feel confident about, and just put it behind you and just keep going.
We started with the first two races, right? Because I feel like I'm setting you up for some success here. I'm thinking, two strong races to start off the year this year is going to go a long way before we get to Norway for what's going to be a bit of a wild card. But before we, talk about any race by race scenario, for you in the points, you finished third in 2018, the year that you won that race. So you set some fast times. I've always felt like you are a guy to watch out for. What kinds of things do you want to see in 2022 that you think will put your program to the point where you can finally get over that last hurdle and potentially win the Tundra Championship this season?
I think as long as the lap cars stay to the bottom, we should be okay. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, no, I think, having the Tundra series, going to Kaukauna and then Marshall right out of the gate, two tracks I'm looking forward to. I mean, it's kind of like what, like every year in the Tundra series, whoever wins the championship, you really have to, you can't have any bad races. And if you do, it's real hard to make up for it. And qualifying strong every week, really pays off. And I mean, it's, you're talking 6 races, and I mean, you gotta be on your game every single week. And if you're heading to a track where your car might not be on, or may not be your best track personally, or new to you, you just you got to make the most of it, and try and come out of it as best as you can. And just I mean, it's really it. It's you just have to do your best to not have bad races, not be involved in wrecks, and keep it clean and stay in the front. It's one bad race can really cost you. I mean, even finishing towards the back, but not having not wrecking out, I mean, can really cost you. I mean, it's always seems to be gets closer and closer every year, and it gets closer and closer with even more people as we kind of see it year after year. And that's just kind of the way it always seems to be.
So second half of the season, Wausau, you said fast time there before, so that's kind of an old hat track for you. Plover, home track, right? That's another place pretty good. Dells, hit and miss there a little bit, but let's talk about Norway. Norway is the wild card this year for a lot of people. We've been talking to all these people on these Tundra Talks. We've got a couple that have been there. We've got a couple that haven't. Super late model wise, I don't know that I've ever seen your name up at Norway. Maybe I might have missed something, but have you even been to the racetrack? What are you expecting for that July 16th race?
Yeah, no, I've never seen the racetrack in person. And I certainly haven't raced there. And I've seen plenty of videos of the racetrack, and ever since it was announced, I kind of tuned into the YouTube a little bit more and, watched a couple races and watched a couple, laps go around there. And, yeah, it's definitely a different, unique track. We go to some smaller, rough, low grip tracks like Wausau. So, it's something different. And, and just like I said, something, going to a new track, you just really got to attack it like you do anytime you go somewhere new, and, just really give everything you got, and, put the best car underneath it you can, and try and stay out of trouble and finish up front.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but earlier in the conversation, you told me you're still going with the home built chassis, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, it's our still same original build chassis, and just, brand new front end on it.
Okay. So obviously one of the things that a lot of the chassis builders do now is they all have a big notebook of, hey, if you go to this track and you've never been there, you should try this, or you should try that, or you should come with this base setup. So without that particular notebook available to you guys, how do you attack that? Or do you go look at a notebook of, say, like a similar style chassis or something as a baseline, or do you just compare it to a different track and try to go that way and bring a baseline setup? Without that extensive notebook that some of these chassis builders have, how do you attack it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always been something that, has been the case really since we, built our own chassis. And so that, it's been something that, there's a lot of pros and cons to that. And, you have a lot of big chassis manufacturers that, are really staying on the cutting edge, and, that's what you're trying to keep up to. And, it's like anything, innovation is, the key thing, and, trying to keep up with that. And, we're fortunate to have, a lot of close connections and a lot of close friends with, certain things. And, so we're able to, take something from, that we, run at Kakana or, run at Golden Sands or wherever, and, and do our best to kind of, think about what we had there, and, kind of tailor it to, what we think we're going to need going forth. And, if you have, extra shocks available to you, set up something different, and, have a plan B, have a plan C. And, I think it's kind of the way we've always had to kind of approach things is, hey, this is our game plan going to that track. And, if this doesn't work, if this is going on, we're going to take this route. And if this is kind of going on, we're going to take this route. And and sometimes it doesn't take much to, like we all know, it doesn't take much to be off. And sometimes you end up with a terrible race because of that. And sometimes you end up with a great race. And, and, I've had, like those larger notebooks available to me, and sometimes, that doesn't always mean those things are going to work. And, the guy that, may not have as much available to you, prevails and, comes out a little bit better than you. So, I think that's kind of the beauty of racing. And, when it comes to innovation, someone, over the weekend or over the week, comes up with something a little bit better than you. And, that's what seems to shine on the weekend. So, that's, so going back to your original question. Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. And, we just really got to kind of look at all areas and, do the best we can heading each track.
How much do you guys like to tinker with the race car on race day? I mean, obviously the best case scenario is the car comes out of the box, it's lightning fast, feels good right away, you don't have to touch it. But I guess I don't ask this of enough racers. Are there days where you just feel like you got to throw the whole kitchen sink at it, or is it more of an approach of we don't want to touch it ever if we don't have to? We try to do the minimal amounts of changes, or are there some teams, and maybe your team included, that say, hey, we're here, we're going to try this, we're going to try that, we're going to see what we do? Is that the scenario in your pit? Or, obviously the day can be short at Tundra races too. We don't have a ton of practice time to meddle around with things. So, what's it like in the pits? Do you take your opportunities to change things, or do you try to hold back as much as you can?
Yeah. So, you said, sometimes, the Tundra races, there's, the practices are quick. If you're lucky, you might get a second shot, in one practice round. But so that's kind of why you got to be prepared for, multiple scenarios, what things might go on. But, really, I mean, perfect scenario. Yeah. Maybe, make some, small, shock sweep adjustments and, move the panner bar up or down. And, that's the ideal situation. But, yeah, sometimes you're messing with springs and bump stops. And yeah, I mean, there's days where, feel like the car is really, really good and you hardly make adjustments in practice. And then the race doesn't go your way. And then I've had a lot of success, yeah, throwing the kitchen sink at the car and, thrashing all day long. And that seems to get the best result. And yeah, it really, really varies, like I said, yeah, hopefully, you only have to make several adjustments, but yeah, I mean, it really goes both ways, especially when, I really only get out and run, 12, 13 times a year and, racing against a lot of people that, run 30, 40, 50 times a year. And, that's only fault of my own, but, so you have to, that's kind of going back to where you have to be prepared for a lot of different scenarios. And, yeah, that's kind of, the, track time and, races under my belt each year. That's, that plays out to be a, disadvantage and, in certain things, but, you just make the most of it.
As a guy that I still consider a young gun in racing, because you're how old now? 20,
28.
28. Okay. So you're getting there. Don't worry about it. Your hair still has color in it, unlike mine. But at this point in your life, in your career, you have the family now. Are you still, seeking bigger things for your career? Do you want to go out and travel some more, do some bigger shows? Or are you pretty happy racing regionally, or what's next up for Colin Reffner? Because I know you love to win some big races around here, but like you always got that snowball derby looming and big races like that. Do you still have some plans to try to make it to those events and push the racing career a little further?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of, always, if you're really, really trying and doing your part, you're always, working to, make things financially better for racing and, seek out additional sponsors and stuff like that. And, for, really what we have for our program and, and family life and work life and stuff like that. I got a job that I love and everything. So, 12 races a year seems to work out really well. And, do the Tundra series and try to hit up some other, prominent races and the specials and stuff like that. And, yeah, so I guess, yeah, like I said, kind of earlier on, we plan on going to the Milwaukee Mile this year. And that's been a bucket list track for me and track that I love, a bigger track, and really looking forward to that. And, yeah, it's, yeah, kind of going, with racing, there's all those, you never know what's going to happen. It's kind of been a lot of things in, my career and a lot of other people's careers. You never, there's all sorts of different paths and opportunities come up at, weird and random times. And, if the opportunity presented itself to race a little more again, or, to go do something like a snowball derby, or, do something different, a different kind of car or series wise. I mean, yeah, I'd definitely be looking at how it, fit in my schedule in my life and being able to see what I can do to make that happen. And yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to do that. So yeah, I think anyone that loves racing, that's definitely something that they're always kind of open to doing. And but yeah, I mean, really the last handful of years of my life, yeah, it's really just kind of been sort of close to home kind of races, and that's really worked out well. And it's what we can best afford to do. And yeah, like I said, doing those 12 races a year, I feel like and I only have one car, and so I feel like every time we go to the track, that one car is really ready, and things are together, and it's not like, well, hey, we don't have time, this isn't really fixed and put together well. And I feel like every time that I do step on the race, or I do get out on the racetrack, it's I feel good about the car that we're bringing to the racetrack. And the quality of that car and the readiness of it is always right there, and in my mind. And that's what I like doing. I like being able to feel like I have the time to put towards it, and really bring a prepared car to the racetrack. Especially if you're only doing 12 races a year, really gotta make them count. And you don't have one just to throw away, and you can't just be okay if you don't run well. I mean, you really gotta make the most of it.
So if you're going to do one bucket list race? All right, we talked about Milwaukee. We'll exclude that one because you're going to get to cross that one off. We mentioned Snowball Derby because that's a big one. One other race. What one would it be? Could you pick one? Can you think of one off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'd probably pick the Slinger Nationals. That's always yeah, I haven't been there and haven't been there in a handful of years to watch it, but when when Trickle was still alive, I was able to kind of tag along with him. I think it was 2 or 3 years in a row I went down there, and yeah, that was a blast. And I haven't the only thing I've done is walked on the track, so I haven't been in a car or been in any pace car or anything like that. I made a lap around it, but yeah, that's a track that totally different animal, and really I feel like shows the driver that you are. And it's a fast little racetrack, high bank, and something totally different than I've ever really been on. So yeah, and of course being the Slinger Nationals, I mean, brings in a lot of publicity, a lot of great talent, where it's NASCAR talent or the best in the Midwest or the best from down south. I think it's yeah, it really shows the driver that you are. And yeah, it's just such a unique race. I'd love to be a part of that at some point in my career.
Yeah, that is definitely one unique facility. We've had two pretty amazing Tundra races there in the past. It's a wild animal. It's it's so funny because all the Central Wisconsin guys, most had never been there, so that was kind of the evolution of the the soft setups where the guys were always dragging on the ground, and that really wasn't working so well at Slinger at the time. So it made for some pretty interesting practice runs through those first couple of years. But just the last thing I'd like to bring up to you here is obviously you're going to be coming back here, and there's a little bee in your bonnet, if you will, because you missed last year, and you certainly, I think you're always well prepared every year that I've talked to you, I've talked to your dad and your uncle, your grandpa. You guys are always a very well prepared team. So how does that translate to 2022 and a chance at a Tundra title? You guys think you're going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new things, on my car, a lot of new elements to it. And yeah, I mean, it's really the longest, really my whole race career that I haven't, that I've gone without, being in a race car. But I think I've made so many, mental laps in my head that, and, been working on that car so much that it doesn't really feel like I've been out of it. And, yeah, the thought that that it's, been months that, since I've been in the car it's not really something that's in the forefront of my mind. And, yeah, I just attack the beginning of every season like we always do. And, yeah, I mean, there's maybe a little extra fire that's burning there, but, usually by the time the winter's over and the weather gets nicer, that, there's always fire burning. So, yeah, you just be ready to go. And yeah, we definitely will be. And, yeah, we'll hopefully we come out of the gate strong and you just keep it rolling.
We'll be looking forward to seeing that. And, obviously glad to have you back. Thank you for taking the time here tonight. If you guys can't tell, and you take a look behind Colin, he's in the process of moving right now. So I noticed, he told me today, and he's like, it's I'm doing some things here, and it's a little bare back there, but that's good. So no better time to do it, right? You're working on a race car, you're trying to move. It's all got to happen at the same time, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not raining, it's pouring, but that's okay. So life's good when it's busy, so can't complain.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you taking the time today, Colin. Looking forward to having you back. And obviously we hope some better luck is on the horizon for you this year.
Yeah, definitely. We'll looking forward to seeing you May 14th.
Absolutely. That's Colin Reffner. He's had some great success at Kaukauna in round one in years past. We'll see if he can do it again. Great Lakes testing round one, May 14th at Wisconsin International Raceway. Then, of course, he's a former Bev Ashton-Brenner Memorial winner too, former fast timer at Golden Sands and Wausau. You want to watch out for the 87 this year. Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. See you then.
All right, we'll see you all next time.